This ain't a vlog, it's a rooftop hot take. Let's talk about 2019's movie of the year, Cats. Cats is a triumph of unashamed felinity. It revels in the joy of existence, being true to yourself, your tribe, and pursuing your dreams. Unless your dreams are being a cheat or going with a cheat. Put a pin in that for later. The first part of the movie is pure joy and frivolity, aside from some questionable humor brought by Rebel Wilson and James Corden, and I was genuinely afraid going into it that it wasn't going to live up to all the negative hype, but I was massively relieved when Jellicle Cats did not fail to delight me as it always does. But in the second half, when Old Deuteronomy, played by Judi Dench, shows up and the cats assemble in the Egyptian, an old rundown theater, the movie takes an abrupt turn into melancholic nostalgia and despair, and I felt real sadness. As Grisabella sings about innocence lost and future uncertainty, I felt myself biting my lip hard to keep myself from openly weeping. It was beautiful. And it's at this point in the movie when Old Deuteronomy really hammers in the point, which I felt was largely missed or overlooked by the critics, which is baffling to me how they could, since Dench practically breaks the fourth wall to do it. Why do we create? Why do we tell stories? Why are we biologically driven to express and share? Please consider these questions while I tell a short story of my own. Cats the Musical debuted in London in 1981. It first played in Toronto, Canada in 1985, and it was a huge success. It essentially kick-started Canada's commercial musical theatre scene. It is largely held up as the most successful Canadian stage production ever. It was that success that proved the viability of the commercial musical theatre scene in Canada generally, and aided in the rise of Toronto specifically as a theatre destination. Cats came back to Toronto in 1989, and it changed my life. I was 3 years old, and that was the first musical that my uncle took my family to see. He loved it, I loved it, and that was the beginning of our shared moments of happiness. The Moments of Happiness is a song which points out that the true experience of happiness is not possible in one lifetime, but rather it is tangled up by our relationships and passed down through generations. So I can't help but to have a deep spiritual and emotional connection to this movie, and I do believe that it has a right, nay, a duty, to exist. Working and lower middle class families can't afford to see big city musicals these days. Arguably, movie tickets are getting harder to afford these days, but people indulge over the holidays, and Cats was a holiday movie. Cats, the movie, is to many families today what the stage production was to my family 30 years ago. A magical, if slightly macabre experience that frees us from commonplace existence for 2 to 3 hours. And if we can reboot Spider-Man 3 times in less than 20 years, then we can certainly make a full-on movie adaptation of a musical zeitgeist that debuted nearly 40 years ago. Let's go back to those questions. Why do we create? Why do we tell stories? Why are we biologically driven to express and share? Well, we create to push boundaries, to challenge both ourselves and our audience. And this movie, just in the visuals and technology alone, pushes boundaries and challenges the audience. I love when a movie shows me something that I've never seen before, and it challenges me to overcome my discomfort. Why do we tell stories? 2 reasons: to entertain and/or to pass on information. Why are we biologically driven to express and share? Because we are social beings in need of connection. We derive pleasure from entertaining others and satisfaction from passing on our knowledge and experiences. So keep all of this in mind while we switch gears and talk about what doesn't work for me in the movie Cats. This movie is a visual spectacle. That's not up for debate. But there are some sequences and creative choices that just don't work. The dance sequences are particularly awkward because the frenetic energy of the music doesn't match the dancers' CGI movements. So they come across as boring in a lot of cases. The slow ballet and the ultra-fast tap sequences work, but the parts in Old Gumby Cat, Rum Tum Tugger, and especially the Jellicle Ball are all weird mismatches. The dumpster diving in Buster for Jones plays better on a second viewing when the viewer is prepared for it, but the faces on the mice and cockroaches are still weird as. Now we come to the passing on of knowledge, i.e. the moral of the story. Remember that pin I stuck up here in the beginning? That's just racism. Racism and Victoria's white savior moment specifically. This movie introduces a whole mess of problems for 2019. Casting Idris Elba as Macavity was brilliant. He's great. But it creates issues when dialogue in the movie states that the reason for Grisabella's outcast status is because she went with Macavity. Put another pin up here. Grisabella, played by Jennifer Hudson, is also a black cat, but instead of the two becoming a power couple, he brought her down and then cast her aside. But now a younger, whiter cat named Bomballerina, played by Taylor Swift, is running with him. She either doesn't know or doesn't care about his previous twist with Grisabella, and she gets to just waltz in like she owns the place. I'm not even going to touch that part. When Grisabella slinks in to sing Memory, the emotional and narrative heart of this entire story, Victoria is the only witness, and she has to sing for Grisabella to get the demoted cat going. Excuse me? No. In the middle of Memory, Victoria, young, white Victoria, just inserts herself. Kitten, please. This is Griz's moment. Back off. And when Grisabella is then chosen as the Jellicle choice, she's all teary-eyed and grateful to Victoria for the assist, as if she was totally powerless to help herself out of a situation that the other cats had put her in, thus making Victoria a white savior. This is further compounded by the problematic lyrics and placement of the new song, Beautiful Ghosts. It's a good song, and it works as a new song for Victoria, who is abandoned by her human family and is now seeking out a new one in this weird and wonderful new world. But the way it was written and where it occurs in the movie doesn't jive thematically or narratively. It comes right after the memory melody and right before the moments of happiness. Victoria sings this song as a response to the pain in Grisabella's memories. And it turns that entire point of that tragic song away from Grisabella towards Victoria. So now not only is Gris being slut-shamed, remember this pin, but now she's also being victim-shamed. Victoria is basically saying, yeah, it sucks that your life is hard now, but at least you have nice memories. I have nothing. Which is so white, I can't even. It's amazing that Grisabella even returns after this exchange. It just isn't the right time in the narrative for that song. It's about Victoria and her choice to stay with the Jellicles, so why not put it at the end as the final song? After the addressing of cats, which is slow, confusing, and boring as a finale, why not have old Deuteronomy turn to Victoria and ask, well, what of your choice, my dear? Are you going to stay and become a Jellicle cat? And then Victoria gets to sing her song and make her choice to dance with these beautiful ghosts, and then the movie ends. Huzzah! That makes more sense thematically, too. As the sun rises and the Jellicles disperse, Victoria pirouettes into a new day and a new life, while Grisabella sails upwards into hers. The end. But not for us. Remember that second pin? This is feminism. Yeah. Here we go. Let's start with the obvious. Of all the Jellicle choice contestants, there's only one female cat, Jenny Annie Dots, played by Rebel Wilson, and the others are all male. I love that Jenny Annie Dots has body positivity and confidence in herself, but in the very next sequence, she jokes about Rum Tum Tugger being neutered to hit the high notes. And in the sequence after that, she accuses Bustopher Jones, played by James Corden, of wanting to be reborn just so he can get fat again. Fortunately, it's at this point that she gets catnapped by Macavity, and disappears for a bit. But later, when the catnapped contestants are fighting back, she grunts, "Don't mess with the crazy cat lady!" before striking Growl Tiger in his male reproductive parts with an anchor chain. Awesome role model. I'm a little confused as to what they were going with here. Not universal body positivity or feminism, that's for sure. The other female contestant is Grisabella, but she isn't really competing because the other Jellicles keep shooing her away. She wants a new life, however, because she was a celebrated star who fell in love with a known criminal and left stardom to be with him, thus bringing about her fall from grace. And now the other female cats spend the whole movie slut-shaming her. Okay. What is that about? In the musical, it works better. She was just an old cat who was once a star, but the world was unkind to her. Nope, it's 2019, and they had to put a weird human spin on it that is both misogynistic and racist. At least the cat who believes in her is also female, and Old Deuteronomy is female now, which was a great casting choice. So I guess the writers thought that maybe balances out the whole slut-shaming undercurrent? I don't know. But it disappoints me because these are distinctly human hang-ups for a band of mystical, magical cats to have and be ruled by. So where does that leave us with Cats 2019? All in all, I love how they've strung together the disjointed songs of Cats and created a more coherent narrative with Victoria as the stand-in audience character. But some of the choices were baffling, some additions in the dialogue were unnecessary and created further complications, and yes, sometimes the CGI was a little too uncanny. And seriously, just move Beautiful Ghost to the end of the story. But for all of its flaws, I still loved Cats, and I urge everyone to watch it at least once to experience those rare moments of happiness. Jason Derulo is having the time of his life playing Rum Tum Tugger, and I'm kind of jealous. Ian McKellen is in an entirely different movie from the other actors. His presence just elevates this entire piece. Thank you, Ian McKellen. You are not getting the praise and recognition that you deserve. I don't know the actors portraying Mungo Jerry, Rumpelteazer, or Skimbleshanks, but they were all fascinating to watch. They really infused their songs with that unashamed felinity, and they were pure joy. I could do an entire video of that magical Mr. Mistopheles. R.I.P. Growl Tiger's Last Stand. And those are my thoughts on the movie adaptation of Cats, Movie of the Year 2019. Until next time, stay just short of fantastic.